It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. Again, the name of that band is called Starblind. If you're a fan of Iron Maiden, you might want to check those guys out, and that is a Shadow Out of Time. And Chris,
Yes.
on the phone with us, we've got a guy who is bringing the folks a shadow out of time, at least from the past. And we want to welcome back to the Classic Metal Show photographer Joe Kleon. What's going on, Joe?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sure thing. I mean, you're no stranger to radio, being that you're a very successful radio guy yourself. But, it doesn't hurt to get on the biggest show going.
It's always fun to be part of the debauchery. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, once again, you've reached a pinnacle in your career as a photographer, to where you've got a backlog of great concert photos and displays to share with the fans. So what's going on, and where is this happening?
Doing a 3-day art gallery exhibit and photo sale, myself and famed Cleveland photographer Anastasia Pantios. Anastasia shot mostly 70s, 80s, 90s. I've shot for the last 15 years, so we basically have 5 decades of Cleveland concert photography that we're going to showcase. And it's happening at the Loftworks Gallery, which is in Asiatown in Cleveland, East 40th and Payne. And tons of metal stuff, because I'm a metal guy. Friday night at 5 p.m. is the opening reception. It'll be going most of the day Saturday, 2 to 8, and Sunday, noon to 5. We'll have some live music on Saturday from Jim and E-Rock from Wish You Were Here, a great acoustic duo. And it's really just probably the largest display over time of Cleveland concert photography ever displayed.
Nice. Now, Joe, let's talk a little bit about your career. You're in the last 15 years, because there's been quite a few famed photographers, I guess, from Cleveland, or of some notoriety, various levels of fame, and certainly there were people that were ahead of you until you got serious about it. So talk a little bit, I would say, not necessarily 15 years, but of the last 10, because you came, I think a lot of your friends, people that knew you, knew that you were a photographer, but then all of a sudden you became not only one of many in the pit, but you became like the guy in the pit taking pictures in Cleveland. So talk a little bit about how you've been able to, rise up and surpass so many people that, were ahead of you at one point.
Well, there's definitely many iconic Cleveland music photographers, since Cleveland, from the history of rock and roll, has been such a mecca for live shows and for rock and roll. Anastasia certainly is one of them, and Janet McCoska, a good friend of mine, is definitely another. But back when I started about 15 years ago, they kind of weren't shooting as much, and I was shooting a lot of local bands and started freelancing for a bunch of different places, and just kind of fell into it, using a lot of my connections from radio and working for record labels and stuff like that, and just kind of pushed it to limits I never thought it could possibly go to.
Right. Now, for people that don't know, Joe, there's a lot of people think, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong on any of this, but a lot of people think that whether you're reviewing a show, as I've done, in the past with various magazines, or whether you're shooting a show, that it's this great gig where you get all access to all people, and you can, you get the best seats, and you get to see the shows. And I have to say, you, especially on your behalf, you and I were talking, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and you told me that most of the time they don't even give you tickets to the show. It's like, take your pictures and then leave, right?
No, there's not a smorgasbord for dinner and a rail of Coke lined out for me ever. The restrictions nowadays, and that they have been for 20 years probably, are mostly first 3 songs, and you get there hours early, you wait for hours, they escort you down to the stage for your 3 songs, you shoot, and then you leave. Or if you have a ticket for the show, then you can usually check your camera with security or whatever at a lot of venues, and then you go back in and watch.
But
it's very regulated.
it just seems so wrong that they wouldn't go the extra mile to give you a seat to stay and watch the show when you're quite literally promoting their artist.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of times I like to beat the traffic home anyway, and whoever I'm freelancing for usually needs the photos by the open of business the next day. So it takes me a couple hours at least to go through a set of photos and process a set to be published. So if I stay for the whole show, I'm up till 3, 4 a.m. So, right. And I've shot 1,000 shows, over 1,000 shows now. So most of the time, unless it's a band I really love, I just want to get the hell out of there and beat the traffic home.
Right. Well, Joe, I'm interested as the business changes. Back when you and I and Chris were growing up, and we were young music fans, we often look forward to record albums coming out or the next big music magazine to come out, be it a Hit Parader or a Cream or even a Rolling Stone or Spin or something like that, where often, a lot of photos are featured in those publications. How has the business changed to where the photos, live photos, have any value these days? I mean, where is the money in being a photographer for a live concert thing? And the reason I'm asking, because I'm thinking back, one of the most famous episodes that took place that caused a riot was when Axl Rose jumped off the stage in St. Louis to beat up the guy who had a camera and was taking pictures, because apparently taking pictures at a concert back in 91, there was some value that some bootlegger could go out there and snap some live photos and somehow sell them for some kind of a profit. Well, where is the money in taking photos today?
Well, I mean, anybody can take a cell phone photo or a decent photo at a concert and try and sell it on eBay or something and sell them. But really for the money, there's not a lot of money in it, to be honest. But freelancing, if you can get to the level where you can freelance for certain publications, you can do okay. I've certainly had some pretty high-paying gigs that I was very happy to get, and I've done a lot of other gigs for not a lot of money just because I'd be sitting at home if I didn't. But in licensing, since I have such a backlog of stuff, I'm doing more licensing and getting more, mostly digital websites to use my images. But to be honest, for me in the last year or so, and I know in the next couple of years, I think the biggest amount of income for me is going to be going after corporate copyright infringers that steal my photos and use them on their corporate websites.
Wow. Well, again, I know that the business has changed, for, not only photographers, but obviously musicians and everything, to where, there just doesn't seem to be as much value, commercial value in their craft. And has that diminished for you, or just because you work? I
think it's diminished all across the industry. If you're talking about record labels or commercial radio stations, especially in photography. I mean, everybody's a photographer now. Everybody has a camera. If not on their phone, they have a Ashton Kutcher purse camera. And there's 10,000 people on social media that are Zoe Smith photography,
right.
And that will go out and do a family photo shoot, or we'll go shoot a band for $20 or $50, or just to get in the door, and we'll do it for free. So you're always competing against stuff like that, but it's like anything else. You got to find your niche and find the people that want to pay, and those are the people you work with.
Now, Joe, I want to go back to what you were just saying about your income being taking down people that are stealing your photos. Because I have to admit, when you started posting that stuff on Facebook and sharing what people were doing, I was absolutely stunned. Not only at the volume of people that were stealing your pictures, but at the fact that they were so brazenly using it. I mean, you were posting up pictures of guys selling your Springsteen. Isn't there, you have like a fairly iconic Springsteen picture with him playing guitar. And then you posted up where a guy was selling like shirts and mugs and pictures. He was selling all of your stuff on product and just basically found it on your website and ripped it off.
Yeah, I don't know how they find some of this stuff. One of my most stolen photos is a photo from Wish You Were Here, a Cleveland Pink Floyd tribute band.
Right.
that I shot in 2004, and it was on my website, it was on their website, and it was published in a newspaper in Toledo, I think, one time. And 10 years later, that photo now is all over the place in all kinds of foreign countries. It's really bizarre. But I started really looking into that about a year ago, and like you were saying, I wasn't at all prepared for the volume of people that are stealing my shit. I mean, you can go on Amazon and buy a fucking couch pillow that has one of my Rudolf Schenker pictures on it.
Jesus.
A Rudolf Schenker couch pillow. I mean, it's just bizarre.
It's crazy. And what's amazing to me is that when you've busted some of these guys out, like I know you posted a video of a guy that was bitching about you suing him because he stole your property. And he
that
made
wasn't
a YouTube
me
video.
personally, but that was another case involving somebody else. But yeah, this guy was stealing people's photos and selling them on like his Etsy store.
Yeah.
And so the guy sued him, and he was Mr. Entitled Snowflake Safe Space victim who was upset that he was being sued for selling other people's work.
It's amazing the level. People wonder why digital anything has lost so much value, and that's why, because everybody just thinks that it's free. No,
you find it on Google Images. Well, why can't I sell it myself?
It's crazy.
Well, Joe, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the bizarre excuses and stuff that I hear, and I don't go after fan blogs or personal websites if I find images on there. I'll usually ask them for a link back to my site, and most of the time I'll sell some prints to the fans, so I'm cool with that. But if it's a corporate entity that doesn't have permission to use my stuff, and I know doesn't have permission from the artist and is making a profit off the website, and they're using my photos on there, or especially if they're selling it on products like T-shirts and shit, that's just ridiculous. I'm going after all those people. I've got probably over 30 active cases now between a bunch of different lawyers.
Wow. Well, Joe, in this gallery, the way that you guys display your photos, obviously, probably. I'm assuming that these photos get blown up into, almost poster size or very large presentation. Is that true or not?
Yeah, there'll be various larger size prints from 11 by 14 all the way up to, probably 36 by 48, I think, some really large canvases that we have and stuff. And I think most of Anastasia's iconic stuff that she has back from the 70s and 80s are going to be in black and white. And we're going to display them in different ways, and it's just a ton of just iconic artists. And for metal fans that are listening to the show, there's going to be a lot of metal stuff in there too. And it's a great way to get some Christmas shopping done early. Come down, buy a couple prints for someone who's a super fan of a band. You got a niece or nephew that likes Taylor Swift or any of that kind of stuff. I've shot all of that too. So,
well, what would you say? I've been investing in this show for 22 years now. So what would you say, you don't have to give me a real number, but ballpark, what would you say your personal output or outlay is to put on a show like this for, blowing up things and having, the larger prints on display?
For everything, probably $1,500.
So there is a personal, investment in this kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'd love to plug the sponsors that we have for the show.
Sure, go ahead.
Please.
And they're easy to find on Facebook and online. Cool Cleveland, a company called Lumalore that does this amazing electric paint. If you've seen Wish You Were Here over the last year or so, the eyes of the pig that levitates above the stage have these glowing eyes, and that's Lumalore paint. It's a very cool, innovative new company from right here in the area. Most of our printing was done by NEO Pro Imaging, a great place in downtown Cleveland, along with Jack Prints and another local place called Print Me Graphics. All three excellent printers. Print Me Graphics did some really large canvases I'm going to have that are amazing. And NEO Pro Imaging did a lot of our prints. And then finally, Advanced Air Duct Solutions, Inc. Everyone needs their air ducts cleaned. You want to breathe in that crap. So all these places helped us out. So it wasn't a huge outlay out of each of our pockets, but there is, quite a bit. So we're hoping some people will come down and buy some photos, and they're great Christmas gifts, and you're supporting local business, and maybe somebody went to a show within the last 50 years, and we probably have photos of it.
Sure. Well, speaking of, past photos and having your work displayed out there, did I hear right that you have, some of your photos in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and how were they aware of, your work, and what do you have displayed in there?
I don't have anything currently in the Rock Hall, and I never have. I don't know how you've heard that.
Okay.
I've talked with the Library and Archives a little bit about possibly getting some stuff in there, which might happen in the future, but having anything displayed in the Rock Hall, I haven't yet, but I would love to.
Sure. Well, since we're talking about the Rock Hall, what are your thoughts on the Rock Hall? I'm assuming you've been there, but, there's all kinds of controversy about the artists that get inducted and who gets inducted and who doesn't. And, being that it is right there in Cleveland, do you have any thoughts on the Rock Hall yourself?
I have thoughts on each year's induction process and people who I don't think belong, like everybody does. Donna Summer probably being my number one. But I don't know. It's such a huge volume of work when you talk about rock and roll, and it's so subjective that, of course, everyone's going to be really opinionated. There's a lot of cool things there. A lot of things they could probably do different, but I think it's a great thing to have in Cleveland. I don't know. I think a lot of the bad mouthing about it and stuff is a bit overboard sometimes. But I don't know. As an institution, I like it a lot. I've seen a lot of cool things there. I've seen some great shows there. They certainly have a lot of cool memorabilia and stuff there. As far as the induction process, that'll always be kind of debated and argued by everybody. Sure.
Now, Joe, I want to swing back to the gallery for a minute, so that people have an idea that are coming. That is, of course, it's on November 10th, 11th, and 12th over at the Loftwork Gallery. Where's that? It's East 40th. Is that right?
East 40th and Payne, and what they call Asia Town. Yeah.
Okay. And for
people the easiest way to get all the information really is loftworksgallery.com. If you go to the events link, of course, we're the next event coming up. There's also a Facebook page for the event. I think you shared the event page.
I did, and I will again tonight or tomorrow, just to make sure that people know. But Joe, what should people that are actively looking for either prints to buy? Well, let's do it this way. Can people A, buy prints that are on the wall, and B, will you have like catalogs or a way for people to come up to you if they don't see a print, but they want, say, a specific Metallica from 1994 with Danzig at Blossom, if you happen to shoot that? Will they have a way to get that?
Everything on the walls will be for sale, and I'm also going to have multiple copies of a list that has probably about 700 artists that I've shot.
Okay.
From Bieber to Barry Manilow to Mastodon and Paul McCartney and everybody in between. So I'll have an alphabetical list, so if someone's a super fan of a band that's not that huge, but's maybe hit House of Blues a couple times or something, I probably, I might have it. So I'll have a list like that, and I'll also have a computer there with a couple of hard drives that have most of the stuff I've shot. So if you wanted to look up a particular gallery from 5 years ago, 8 years ago, or a certain band, probably 90% of the time I'd be able to call it right up in front of you, and we could take a print order right there and have it to you within a week.
Very cool, man. Now, dude, I know because I've been to a lot of shows and I've literally watched you work, that because of the advent of the cell phone, it has totally changed. And a lot of times you'll see 2 or 3 guys like you with, professional cameras ready to shoot. And then you got 4 or 5 yahoos with an iPhone with a clip-on fucking lens on it. Do those guys make you insane that they're given the same access that you get?
It doesn't happen very often, but probably 2 or 3 or 4 times a year I'll see somebody like at Blossom or somewhere in the pit that just has a cell phone or a $79 little Ashton Kutcher purse camera that's about the size of a pack of cigarettes. And yeah, it's one of the things that you get used to working around, but it doesn't happen very often. And the rare occasion that I always love is when someone tries to, it doesn't happen very often at all, when someone will try and bust out a selfie stick in the pit. and take their camera and kind of raise it up in the air to get it, closer to the artist.
Ugh, Jesus.
There's a Facebook page called Asshole Photographers in the Pit, where it's a pretty funny Facebook page where people share their stories about asshole photographers in the pit, and they take pictures of other asshole photographers in the pit and post them, and
Nice.
It gives you an idea of one of the hazards you have to deal with.
No doubt, man. So, dude,
because these publicists will grant access to, again, Zoe Smith that has her own personal blog, and sometimes these people will put in requests to bands for shows, and they just grant them to, everybody.
Well, and you know what's weird about that, dude, is they'll give photo passes, and Neely, you can speak on this too. I don't even ask for I never ask for a photo pass. I mean, never, because I don't have a camera. All I have is my cell phone. So I don't have a camera to even go in the pit and take photos, but I'll show up to get my tickets when a publicist hooks me up for a show, and I'll get like 2 tickets and 2 passes and a photo pass. And I'm always
take
like,
your Android and come on in the pit, man.
Yeah, you see, but I for me personally, I don't want to be in the pit because I'm like, one, I'm a big fat tub of shit, so I'm in everybody's way. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, what am I going to do? Stand there and take pictures like a dumbass? What am I going to use them for? My own website? Hey, here's me with...
I would take as many pictures of you in the pit as I would of the band just for my own personal enjoyment.
That's what I'm saying. It would be ridiculous. Big fat dumbass in the fucking pit. And then every 5'3" girl that can't see behind my big ass fucking bitching about it. No thanks. But what I'm getting to, though, is that's kind of the problem, though, is that you're right. The people that are in charge of the promotion of these artists don't seem to have a whole lot of quality control on how the artists are captured and represented. And I have to think for somebody like you, who is much more serious and not just some hack that's there because he's a big fan of fucking Udo Dirkschneider or whatever, I have to think that it's annoying to you, the level of that they're given the same access that you have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it kind of goes both ways. There's some bands and publicists that work with bands that grant this access that will, allow almost anybody. And then there's other bands that are a lot more restrictive, and they'll actually, for each city, they'll look at who the photographer is and maybe look at some of their work or who they shoot for. And, they'll grant access to some places in a city, daily publications or weekly publications or established places that they know have a lot of traffic, and other places they won't. So again, it kind of runs the whole gamut. Sometimes you'll get all kinds of people that you've never seen before from tiny little blogs that anybody that asks they'll let in, and other times there's only 3 or 4, and I'll hear from other friends of mine that got denied. It just depends on who the band is and who the publicist is. And I think a lot of times the band doesn't even know what goes on involving all that stuff. It's handled by other people, and they're far removed from what kind of access we have or having any input in us having good access. And then there's some bands that really care a lot about like that. Like Kiss is a band like that. Kiss always gives photographers great access. They approve the right photographers, and for the first 3 songs when they're out there, they mug for us, which is why over the years you've always seen Kiss photos, because they take that very seriously and they know that's how the band is represented. Other bands don't give a shit, and that's why you don't see a lot of good photos of them.
Sure. Well, Joe, why don't you plug your gallery again? It's coming up next weekend, right?
Yeah, next weekend. The opening reception is Friday, 5 to 9 p.m., but it'll probably go a bit longer. Saturday, 2 to 8 in the afternoon, and Sunday, noon to 5. Have some live music on Saturday. Again, 5 decades of Cleveland concert photography in surrounding areas. It's at the Loftworks Gallery. Cleveland, Asiatown, East 40th and Payne, loftworkgallery.com is the website. You can also find it easily on Facebook, and there's some maps and some direction links and stuff on the Loftworks Gallery website.
Perfect.
So we hope to see you out there. It's going to be fun, and we put a lot of work into it, and hope some people will come out and enjoy all the visuals.
Excellent. All right, Joe, anything else?
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on for so long, man. Thank you very much.
Sure, absolutely. Well, go out and check out Joe's work next weekend if you're in the Cleveland area or within, a decent driving distance, and come in and check it out. Well, Joe, I'm going to wrap up this interview with something from a Cleveland band, Aftershock. I'm sure you're aware of them.
Oh, yes. I was praying that Chris wasn't going to play some band tango.
But I thought I'd close out this interview with something from their Burning Chrome release. And since you're having a gathering next week, I thought I'd close out with the gathering. So go check out Joe's work next week out at in Cleveland. And here it is. This is Aftershock with The Gathering, exclusively here
on your classic metal show.